Hello and welcome to another live episode of the League One show brought to you by Over the Bar. Again, this week, joining myself is our resident Ipswich fan and co-host, Ben. So it's going to be a slightly different show this week. Obviously, there being no League One football at the weekend. We're going to spend the first part of the show talking about the FA Cup first round fixtures from the weekend, looking at some of the bigger scores. Not with all due respect, there were some teams that we expected to get walkovers against non-league sides, so we're probably not going to touch on them initially. So apologies, mainly like Rotherham fans after your 3-0 win against Bromley. Probably not going to touch upon them until later in the show, and we did look at the weekend. And then once we've discussed all the FA Cup, we're going to jump into previewing the fixtures from the weekend. So slightly different show. Let us know what you think. As always, say if you're not a fan of the FA Cup chat, we know not to bring it back next time. So don't worry about that. So we're going to start by looking at some of the FA Cup games. Before we do any further, I think me and Ben have to apologise in advance for both struggling with colds, viruses, and bad throat. So excuse some coughing, moments of silence if we both lose it a little bit, but we'll do our best anyway and see how we go. There's no really particular order to some of these games we're going to cover. In terms of big shocks, there weren't that many. There was a couple of teams that are going to replays that probably weren't expecting. But I think the big one we want to talk about first of all is Sunderland's 1-0 home defeat against League Two Mansfield. So I don't think it was a result many of us saw coming, Ben, were it? And Sunderland out early in the cup to a lower league opposition side. What did you make of that upset?
It was a huge upset, really, but in theory, you've got to look at it from one perspective. I think there are some League One teams who are taking the FA Cup very seriously because it means that they'll be playing, bigger teams, the Premier League teams, the Championship teams. But then there are other League One teams who probably have bigger aspirations. You probably don't see the FA Cup as really anything worthwhile. It's worth pointing out, though, that Mansfield Town are actually 20th in League Two. They are struggling this season. And Sunderland, they're doing well in League One, or at the moment they're doing well. They've been in bad form, so I don't know where they'll be should they carry on with the bad form. But it was a huge upset, really. But at the same time, I don't know whether Sunderland really lined up to actually have a real go, at Mansfield. But if we look at the two teams, Sunderland lined up with a 4-2-3-1. Their typical formation, it's worth pointing out. And they did actually play quite a strong squad. They actually played a mixture of starters, players that would play week in, week out, and players who would typically either come in from the bench or from the under-21. Broadhead was playing up front. I think, he's a regular starter of Sunderland. And of course, they actually had their regular back four, so that's also worth pointing out. And Mansfield matched up with them. I think they had Ollie Hawkins playing for them. I might be wrong, so somebody feel free to correct me in the comments. But Mansfield, they beat them 1-0. A bit of, as I keep saying, we're having an upset really, because Mansfield Town in the 5th minute of the game, and then managed to actually keep out Sunderland for the entirety of the game. And Sunderland did struggle, to be honest. It was actually a fairly one-sided match if you look at the stats. Sunderland had 62% possession compared to Mansfield's 38%. But when you look at the shots, it is worth saying that Mansfield did have a fair go at Sunderland. They had 7 shots on target, and ultimately Sunderland struggled to keep them out. It was 1-0, but Mansfield did have a right old go. But we'll probably go into this a bit more later on in the League One preview, because we will be previewing this weekend's fixtures in League One. But Sunderland are 5th in League One at the moment. They are in really, really bad form. They haven't won in 4 now, so if they lose this weekend, they wouldn't have won in 5. So I think the main talking point from this FA Cup game is, where are Sunderland? Why aren't they performing well at the moment? And what has gone wrong for them?
Yeah, it's quite worrying, isn't it? And obviously, it wasn't a weak Sunderland side by any stretch of the imagination. When you look at the team they put out, it's a team that have played a significant amount of games all season. There's nobody in there that's been really frozen out for the majority of the season. So the keeper's not played that many, but apart from that, it's a very strong squad. And similar with Mansfield, I don't think it was their 100% first choice 11, but they've gone there, given it a go, and they're through to the next round of the FA Cup now. And they'll be looking forward to a bit of a cup run there. But yeah, the issues there for Sunderland are all to see. Mansfield are up against League One opposition again in the next round in Doncaster. After Doncaster got a rare win as well. So again, we'll talk about Doncaster a little bit later on in the show. There's a big local derby in the northwest area between Bolton and Stockport County. Stockport brought a hell of a load of fans and packed out the away end at Bolton Stadium, and it was a really good result 2-2. Season get a replay back at Edgeley Park. Do you think the huge away following had a factor in this one, Ben, and managed to get Stockport over the line for a really good draw and a replay back at their place?
Well, first of all, well done to Stockport fans, because, you know, their turnout was absolutely fantastic. And you know what? That is the magic of the FA Cup. And I think that's what makes many people feel the magic of the FA Cup, because some people believe that it's gone, but other teams such as Stockport, the smaller teams, really do believe that they can get something out of the competition. So yeah, fantastic result for them. 2-2, as you just mentioned. Ewan Doyle scored for Bolton alongside with Kachunga, and for Stockport, Scott Quigley and Ben Whitfield scored for them. I think the main talking point from this game is how well Stockport did. They scored both their goals in the first half. Actually, all 4 goals of the game came in the first half. So, you know, it was actually a very eventful game. But in the second half, Stockport did manage to keep out Bolton, which in my opinion is actually incredibly impressive. And what's even more impressive is the fact that Stockport had 3 shots on target and 3 shots throughout the entirety of the game. So Stockport, they were dominated throughout large parts of the game, but Bolton had 16 shots and 6 on target. So it was very much a one-sided match. But I think Stockport did kind of like convert their chances. They were more clinical in front of goal, and I think that showed. And I think Bolton very much underestimated Stockport County. When you look at the 2 starting lineups, very much a similar case to Sunderland. Bolton actually played a very strong squad when you look at them. Ian Doyle played front, Baptiste and Santos at the back, Kachunga on the wing with Afolayan as well. So a very strong squad there. So, you know, that is even more impressive that Stockport managed to draw against this Bolton side. So, yeah, very well done to Stockport. Tremendous away following, and yeah, very good match.
Yeah, and imagine they'll be packing out Edgeley Park for the replay as well, so it'll be a cracking atmosphere. Imagine it's probably a game Bolton could do without as they concentrate on League One, but yeah, it should be a cracking game down at Edgeley Park. And I'm not sure if it's been picked for television, the replay, but if not, say if you in the local area get down, it's going to be a cracking cup tie. Some people would say it is a shock, but I think given the current run of both teams, it's not really a shock in the grand scheme of things. Crewe currently struggling in League One, going out to high flying Swindon Town in League Two. Was you shocked to see Crewe go out at this stage, Ben, given their league run at the minute?
No, I mean, I wasn't shocked at all, really. I mean, if you are a pessimistic fan, then you might say that Swindon technically are probably at the moment a better team than Crewe. And by that, I mean, like, the team that is more in form, if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, Crewe, they have to be disappointed though, because you would have thought that they would have liked an FA Cup run, get the big team at home, maybe away from home, and get in the money. But Swindon, they absolutely thrashed Crewe. Alexandra Lewis-Reed with a brace. And as an Ipswich fan, I was happy to see this Tyree Simpson with a goal on the 52nd minute. And you might look at this and say, okay, Crewe probably had a one-off, but Crewe aren't doing well at all, I'm afraid, at the moment. And yeah, Swindon very much dominated passages of play. They were actually the more robust team in the game. They had a lot of yellow cards, I seem to realise, and they actually, yeah, dominated possession as well. So, you know, Swindon were very much a well-drilled team. They knew what they were going there for. And yeah, they came out with rewards. But if we were talking about this in regards to League One and what this might mean for League One. Crewe are bottom of the league, of course. They haven't won in over 5 games. I think it's 6 games now, if I'm not mistaken. So, that loss against Swindon was very much damaging because, like a win against them would have been very welcomed, especially given how poor their form has been. So worrying for Crewe. I'm sure we'll talk about this in more detail in the League One preview. But yeah, Swindon, impressive for them. Hopefully they get a good draw in the next round. I'm afraid I haven't actually looked at the draw properly yet. So I have a virus at the moment. My brain is foggy, so bear with me if you're listening at the moment. But hopefully Swindon, this is what I meant to say. Hopefully Swindon do go far in the cup. Please edit that out.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the draw now. They're away to Walsall in the next round, so it's another winnable tie for them. They'll be fancy their chances of making it to the third round, that's for sure. One of the other big games I kind of really want to talk about is a couple really affecting teams towards the top end of the table. The first of those is Wycombe. If I can find their result again, because it was one that I really wanted to talk about. Away to Hartlepool, a 2-2 draw. So they were playing against a high-flying Hartlepool side, doing really well in League Two, and Wycombe have hit a real brick wall as of late, haven't they? They've really struggled over the month of November so far. Did you expect Wycombe to come away with this one? Expect to replay? Because I can't expect them not to coast, I expect them to come away into the second round.
To be honest, Wycombe are 4th in League One. They have been struggling lately. And I think some teams, and this may sound really harsh, but I think some teams have actually figured them out almost. I reckon Hartlepool very much came to the game wanting a result. They're very much the hungrier team, flying in League Two at the moment. They play fantastic football, and ultimately that showed. They played very well against this Wycombe side. And they get the replay at Wycombe, and hopefully that'll bring them in a bit of money. But well done to Hartlepool, by the way, because that was an absolutely fantastic result for them, and a result that they should really be proud of. Luke Molyneux had a fantastic game. He's a player in League Two who I really do rate, so keep an eye out on him. And Wycombe as well. They actually fielded a very strong side, and I reckon Gareth Ainsworth is trying to do anything just to change round their small bit of bad fortune, because they have dipped off a tiny bit lately. So Wycombe did field a very strong squad. Sam Folkes up front, Horgan and Wheeler on the wings, and ultimately that wasn't enough to beat Hartlepool. It was a 2-2 draw, as I just mentioned. Well done to Hartlepool. Fantastic result. Fantastic young team as well. And I reckon they'll be thriving and looking forward to their replay at Adams Park.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting second game. Well, replay, sorry. I'd expect Wycombe to come through in a replay, but you never know with the FA Cup, do you? It's a good result in getting the draw in the first place. Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how they fare in the replay. The other big one really was Wigan ending up in a 0-0 draw against conference side Solihull Moors. When you look at the lineup, it's a fairly strong Wigan side. Just a couple of changes. McLean didn't start. I think Cameron Tilt started, but apart from that, it's a very strong Wigan side. So you got to give props to Solihull Moors here, aren't you? High flying Wigan, pretty much full strength, and they've gone and got a result there and getting them back to their own place.
I mean, this is probably one of the most significant results of the FA Cup, in my opinion, because, this was very much an example of Wigan kind of putting their foot off the pedal almost, becoming a bit complacent, because I'm not sure how they were viewing the FA Cup, but I reckon Wigan were very much expecting just to coast over Solihull Moors, and that very much wasn't the case. So, fantastic result for them. I have to give a shout out to a few players. I can't pronounce his name, Alex Gudger. I hope I haven't butchered it, so sorry, Alex, if you're listening. I doubt you are. And another player as well, who is Callum Howe. Their two centre-backs both had fantastic games, and they very much dealt with the Wigan attacking quartet very, very well. So Solihull Moor, they did play well. They very much matched up against a very good Wigan side. And yeah, I mean, I bet they'll be looking forward to the replay at their place because, to be a packed out stadium for that game. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I like Wigan, by the way, but I hope Solihull Moors do come away with a positive result. You always want the smaller team to win.
Yeah, say apart from when you're up against them. Yeah, you always fancy yourself, don't you? But yeah, you got to give props to Solihull Moors, and they'll really be fancy the chance in the replay now. They've gone back to their own place. It's not a case of they've held on at their own ground for the first game and then travelling away for the second. They're bringing them back to their place. They'll really will fancy their chances there of getting through to the second round. In terms of noticeable scores, there's nothing really. There was an all League One tie between Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth, which ended 0-0. So there'll be a replay there. The winners going on to face Rochdale or Notts County in the second round. That game's also been selected for television purposes. One game I do want to touch on before we start looking at the weekend's fixtures, Ben, is Portsmouth's home win against Harrow. Harrow, Southern League, South Division. So quite a few levels below, even non-league really. So it's not the best results. Portsmouth just scraping home. And when you look at the starting lineup, it wasn't far off being a full-strength Portsmouth side. So are you shocked that it took him as long as it did to break down the Harrow Resolute Harrow to get through?
Yeah, in my opinion, what was even more shocking was the fact that Portsmouth actually had 17 shots in that game. So they very much did dominate this Harrow side, and they very much did go gun-ho during the game as well. But I almost think that it's that, it very much does describe where Portsmouth are at the moment as a club, because under Danny Cowley at the moment, they're very much firing blanks. They're very much struggling to score in League One, and they sit 14th in the table at the moment as well. So I reckon the 1-0 win kind of summed that up really, and it was kind of like a metaphor for how Danny Cowley's team are performing at the moment. But a win is a win. Who knows, maybe Portsmouth could go on a decent little cup run in the FA Cup. I hope for their sake that they do. But yeah, 1-0 win against Harrow, probably on paper not the most impressive result, as I should really be thrashing these teams, especially since Harrow's one of the lower teams in the FA Cup, or who were in the FA Cup. But yeah, a win is a win. And who scored for them? Harness scored for them as well. So yeah, their main player or their main goal scorer, if you will, getting a goal for them. So yeah, I bet Danny Cowley would be happy with that.
Yeah, so Portsmouth next up, they're at home to Harrogate in the second round. So again, they'll fancy their chance of reaching the third round. Harrogate going well in League Two at the minute, so it will be an easy game, but a home tie against lower league opposition with a passage through to the third round on offer. You definitely take that before the draw was given, so Portsmouth will be up for that one. Just before we start previewing, obviously everyone here will primarily be wanting us to discuss League One, but is there any other games that caught your eye involving League One sides in the FA Cup before we move on, Ben?
No, not really. I mean, I think most of the results in the FA Cup were to be expected, really. Like a lot of the bigger teams beating the smaller teams. And of course, I think one of the more significant results was, I think, Vanarama South team or Vanarama National League, St Albans beating Forest Green Ravers from League Two. So that was one of the more significant results, I guess. But we're a League One podcast. Elsewhere with the League One teams in the FA Cup, nothing really happened. Ipswich drew against Oldham, but that was boring. Nothing to talk about there. So yeah, nothing else really happened in the FA Cup. But yeah, if you're in the comments, if you're watching right now, let us know how your team did, if we haven't mentioned your team already, and we'll read them out in the chat. And yeah, send in your questions as well. But shall we get into the League One preview?
Yeah, definitely. With regards to League One, do you want to take from the top, Ben, with the fixtures?
Of course. So this week in League One, because we do have a Friday fixture as well, Bolton Wanderers are facing Crewe Alexandra. And we're going to start off with that game, David, because, that is one of the more interesting games in League One in Matchday 17. Bolton sit 16th in the table, and 9 points below them is Crewe Alexandra sitting 24th in the table. So on paper, some people might think that Bolton could easily win this game, that they should really have this game on paper. But this is going to be a pretty difficult game for them, isn't it?
Yeah, when you look at the run that Bolton have been on, it's definitely not a home banker. It's one that I won't be putting my coupon on anyway. To say in terms of Bolton, it wasn't the best draw against Stockport in the cup, and they'll definitely need to they'll definitely have the fans on the back. They'll be expecting a result in this one. So if they're going to turn it around, this is a game that you'd want a team bang out of form, coming to your own place. This is a game that Bolton will need to target, because when you look at that table, Bolton are slipping dangerously close to that bottom four. Obviously, a long way to go, but you don't want to be getting into a habit of defeats and find yourself in that situation in the table. Crewe, on the other hand, you just have to look at their form, and it's absolutely hopeless. Apart from the home win against Wigan, the FA Trophy, they've not had much to shout about over the last couple of months. So, I think you'd like to think a home win, but given the run that both sides are on, it could just be a boring 0-0 draw with a very much lack of quality.
So elsewhere in League One, there are actually quite a few fixtures that have been postponed due to the international break. I'll read out the games that aren't going ahead this week real quickly. FC Wimbledon Cheltenham has been postponed. Doncaster v Fleetwood, Morecambe v Wigan, Shrewsbury v Rotherham, and Sunderland v Lincoln. But a game that is going ahead is Accrington Stanley v Plymouth Argyle. Accrington sit 12th in the table, bang in mid-table, and Plymouth sit second in the table, 1 point below Wigan. First of all, one of Plymouth's only away loss this season was against Wycombe, the smaller team and the smaller ground. Who's to say that it won't be the same case against Accrington Stanley, who are very happy to go out there and spoil a few League One teams these days?
Yeah, Accrington really is a tough place to go. The WAM Stadium, I think it's still going by these days, but it'll be a really tough game for Plymouth. That it will definitely be a test their promotion credentials as well. Teams that want to go up, no disrespect to Accrington, but these are the kind of away games you want to be targeting to get a win from. Won't be easy, but Plymouth, they'll always be well backed every single away game. The Green Army always travel quite well, don't they? So they'll be out in numbers at Accrington. Accrington will be seeing this as an opportunity for themselves to continue with their playoff ambitions as well. Currently 12th in the table, 6 points outside the top six. So they'll want to start getting some wins under their belt. They're not going to be favourites for the top six by any stretch of the imagination, but they're there on merit. They were knocking on the door last season, so it is a big game for them as well. If they want aspirations to get in top six.
So with this Plymouth side, because on paper they should really be beating this Accrington Stanley side, would you call this a must-win for them? Because they're 1 point below Plymouth, and I think a lot of below Wigan, sorry, and I think a lot of Plymouth fans are really hoping they can go up this season.
I won't class it as a must-win. Obviously, it's like another 30 games to go, so there's going to be plenty of opportunities to add to that points total. So 33 points this stage of the season is nothing to be sniffed at, is it? They'll definitely win to fancy their chances, but I think a must-win is a bit wide for the mark. But it's a game they'll definitely be targeting 3 points on, because there's going to be tougher away games, but there's going to be a lot easier away games as well. So it's one of those that if they came away with a point, I don't think they'd be too disheartened, really.
And good evening to everybody in the chat, by the way. Good evening to Ryan. Good evening to Johnny as well. Get involved in the chat if you are there. Send in your questions. We'll make sure to answer them at the end of the show. So elsewhere in League One, we're not going to go through all of the games. We're just going to go through the more important games, more significant games, if you will. But Burton versus Charlton could arguably be one of those games. It's quite an interesting game, actually. Burton are 11th in the table, and they're doing decently under Jimmy Floyd. Hasselbank. And Charlton have just managed to crawl their way out of the relegation zone. They're 18th in League One, and they're 3 games undefeated under Johnny Jackson. So how do you see this game going?
It's a really intriguing one. I think a few weeks ago you'd be putting it down as a bit of a home banker, but obviously with Adkins going, Johnny Jackson's come in, hit the ground running. He got his first defeat as Charlton boss. It was only in the Pizza Cup, so I don't think we can read too much into it. But in the real competitive action so far, he's won 3 of his opening 4 games, drawn the other one. So it's really looking sad, so quite rosy for Johnny Jackson. And he really is staking a claim for him getting that job on a permanent basis, that's for sure. Burton, on the other hand, there seems to be quite a hit and miss. So when you look at the recent form, you just got to look at the last 6 games. Lost 2, 1-2, lost 2, 1-2. So they're very much a very inconsistent side at this moment in time. And they'll be looking to start putting a run of wins together because, again, similar to Accrington, they're knocking on the door of the top 6. And this is a game they'll probably be targeting because Charlton's still at their best. So I think Burton will go into this one really fancying the chance and hoping they can stop that Charlton momentum.
So Sheffield Wednesday versus Gillingham is next up in the preview. And Sheffield Wednesday are undefeated in 5. They're just starting to find their feet in League One. And Gillingham, well, it's the same odd story for Gillingham so far this season. They're 19th in the table. They've managed to find a bit of form under Steve Evans, but ultimately they're still struggling. So is this more or less an easy game to predict, or do you reckon there could be a surprising result?
I still think Sheffield Wednesday will come away with the win. I think they'll have to fight quite hard for it because Gillingham, they're never an easy side to beat. Even if they're on poor form, Steve Evans' sides never really make it easy for the opposition. So I'm not expecting a rollover from Gillingham, but I don't see Sheffield Wednesday not winning this one. I think Gillingham is quite a concerning situation. There seems to be a lot of unrest amongst the fans, given around the ownership of the club. I think they're currently under a transfer embargo as well, so things aren't looking good. That's down there at all. Only 1 point outside the bottom 4, and a lot of people did tip them as dark horses for top 6, given how they ended last season. But it's really not looking good for them. And by 5 o'clock on Saturday night, they could very much well be in the bottom 4.
So with Gillingham, do you reckon Steve Evans should really have benefit of doubt on as manager of the club, because he has been struggling with them, but some people might say that's actually the owners' fault for how they're doing at the moment, especially since they are under a transfer embargo. So do you reckon that we should give Steve Evans maybe a bit of slack?
Yeah, from what I see on social media, I've not really seen anything in terms seeing posts like Evans out. It seems most of the anger is directed at the ownership of the club. But I think you can only use that as an excuse for so long. I think a lot of managers where there's boardroom unrest can kind of hide behind that. But I think there comes a point where it's like the manager and the 11 players you're picking on a Saturday at some point have got to take the flat. You can't consistently blame the owner for poor results on the pitch and the quality of football. It's still not a bad side that Gillingham are putting out on a weekly basis. So you've got to start asking questions at starting 11, the 3 subs coming on, and the manager at some point. You can't continuously blame the ownership, unfortunately. I think that line is coming soon where they're going to cross that. And I think I'm not saying it's imminent, the turn on the manager and the players is coming, but carry on runs of like this. And if they slip into the bottom 4, it can't be far off, I'd say.
And we have 2 more games to get through. Again, we're not going to go through all the games, so sorry if you missed out your team. Give us a few. I'm really struggling here, so mind you, apologies for the coughing. The host or the co-host is struggling today. He has virus brain. This will probably be one of those episodes, so apologies for that. But speaking about foggy and speaking about being slow, we're going to talk about Portsmouth. Make a load of that transition. Portsmouth versus Wycombe Wanderers is another game that is happening this weekend in League One. Wycombe have been struggling a bit under Gareth Ainsworth lately, and Portsmouth, they haven't really been scoring that much under the Cowley brothers, as we were talking about earlier, and they have been struggling as well. So please save me from this awful little segment here and just allow me to choke for a bit. How do you reckon these two teams will get on?
I think for Portsmouth, when you look at their recent run of games, there's 3 wins from the last 5 games. One of those is the Papa John's Trophy, and one of those wins is in the FA Cup as well. We've already kind of not downplayed that result from the weekend, but it's not as impressive as it should have been. That's for the last few league games. So they had an away trip to Accrington, 2-2 draw, not a bad result. Beat Bolton at home. Again, the way Bolton are playing, it's not the greatest of results, but a win's a win. And then drawing 1-1 at home to Cheltenham. So it's not all rosy for Danny Cowley's men. They'll come into this one very thankful for the run that Wycombe are on at the minute. Wycombe, I don't know what has happened to them at all. When you look at some of their recent results, you've got to wonder what the hell's going on there. Again, I know it's only the Papa Johns, but they got battered 5-0 at home to Burton the other night. The last league outing was that 4-1 drubbing at home to Ipswich. So Ipswich will be coming into this one. Not Ipswich, sorry. Portsmouth will be coming into this one. Not fancying the chances, but I think it's a game that a few weeks ago was more daunting than it is now. But they'll still, if they want to get a result, they're still going to have to play really well to get a result anyway.
So let's quickly just talk about these two teams a minute, because I think there's a bit more to talk about with both Wycombe and Portsmouth. Wycombe Wanderers, they're struggling at the moment. Gareth Ainsworth is a very good manager, by the way. But what do you reckon has gone wrong for Wycombe? Do you reckon it's the case of teams figuring out how they play? Or do you reckon it's just the case of a team going through a bit of bad form?
It's a bit of both, I'd say. I think it's, I wouldn't say they've been found out, but they are a very direct side. 1 second. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, they're a very direct side. You know what you're going to get with them. It's not going to be very pleasing on the ice. I think if teams can really dig the feet in and really have a go at Wycombe, they are there to be got at. And I think a few teams have started to figure that out a little bit. But Wycombe are a good side. They're not going to continue on this run forever. They will clip back into gear at some point. I think it's just a matter of when, not if, really.
Agreed. And let's quickly talk about Portsmouth, because we've actually been talking about Portsmouth quite a lot in this show. They're a team that are struggling. Just quickly then, the Cowley brothers, do you reckon Portsmouth fans are going to start losing patience with them? Or do you reckon it's very much a case of keeping faith with the project?
It's a bit difficult because Portsmouth are a great fan base. There's no two ways about it. And I think they kind of understand it's still not quite a Danny Cowley team. You've got to bear in mind Kenny Jackett had that team for quite a few years, and I think Cowley's going to take time for him to mould it into what he wants it to be. I think the fans will be patient with him, but I don't know if the owners will be. I think that's where the pressure will come from first. I think the Portsmouth fans will be a lot more patient in the hierarchy, but it's just whether the board are happy with how things are going. I don't think they will be, but yeah, I think they've got to give him time to turn it around anyway.
And finally, Ipswich versus Oxford. This could arguably be called a playoff game, really, because if Ipswich win, they'll be 1 point below the playoffs. And if Oxford win, then that, more or less cements their place in the playoffs, if that makes sense, to make them more comfortable in the playoffs. Where do you reckon this game will go, and who do you reckon will win?
It is a tough one to call, this one. When I was looking at the fixtures earlier, I didn't really want to pick a side, but I think with this one, I think I will side with Ipswich. I think they've been on a more impressive run as of late. Well, they've both been on great runs, to be fair, but I think Ipswich have got the quality to really rise to the occasion in this one. They'll be backed by another fantastic crowd on to Portman Road, and I think there'll be a lot of pressure on both sides. So I think the quality is there for Ipswich to get them over the line this one, but I don't think it'll be easy by any stretch of the imagination. Oxford are a quality side, and they'll definitely both be in the mix for a top 6 spot at the end of the season, that's for sure.
And those are just some of the League One games this weekend. If we missed your team, send us in a question in the comments below. And now we're going to get into your questions. We have plenty of questions that you've sent in, so we thank you very much for them. So, David, I'm really bad at transitions. So, take us away.
Yeah, so again, like Ben said, thank you very much for getting your questions in and ahead of the show. Always very much appreciated. If you are new to the show and you're not familiar with this part, we invite questions on Twitter and the live chat as we go. So we always make sure you get them in. As well, if you are new to the show, you are watching on Twitter or you're new to YouTube, watch us on there. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel. Click the bell so you're getting notified of all our latest content for the League One show. We usually are on every single Wednesday, but tonight's slightly different, just mainly because of the FA Cup illness this week. So we'll be back to normal on Wednesdays next week anyway. But yeah, just make sure you do subscribe to the channel. Into the first questions on Twitter. So the first one is in from Ian Bradders. I'll come to you on this one first, Ben. So would any League One fan, especially being Ipswich, I think Ryan has asked a question about James Norwood as well, so it kind of ties in quite nicely. Would any League One fans be happy to take a punt on transfer listed James Norwood, with his well-publicised off-field activities? I know for a fact Paul Warne, the Rotherham manager, won't touch with a barge pole, a definite candidate for Hollywood FC, otherwise known as Wrexham, or Moneybag Stockport. Do you think James Norwood will stick around League One, or do you think it could go down as far as the National League? Because surely there's going to be a club in the lower end of League One, League Two. When we get to January, it's going to be desperate for a proven goal scorer.
In regards to Wrexham FC, Paul Mullin, who is one of James Norwood's best friends, he plays for them. So I think many people have kind of like made that connection there and have kind of assumed that James Norwood would probably be a good fit there, which he probably would be, to be fair. But with Norwood, personally, I reckon it'd be a good fit anywhere in League One. He's a very good player, and I think due to his conduct off the pitch, especially on social media, he's kind of fallen out of favour with management in League One. He's a proven goal scorer 2 seasons in a row. He's been our top scorer at Ipswich. Under poor managers, it is worth mentioning there. But yeah, he's actually performed very well at Ipswich Town. He isn't a bad player at all. And I also reckon that he'd be a bit of a coup if any team in League One bought him. My only worry is, especially with James Norwood, as an Ipswich Town fan, would be, again, his conduct, because his conduct this season has been particularly troublesome for the club. And I reckon that is ultimately why he has been transfer listed for us. So I don't know whether that'll put some managers off signing him. It might do. But under the right manager, and this may sound really random, but I can actually imagine Darren Moore being good at this. He could actually be a very good player under the right manager. A manager like Darren Moore who could put his arm around you and who could, get you onto the right path. But yeah, James Norwood, great player. He'd be great for any team in League One. Just needs the right manager, maybe the right team, and maybe just to sort his own attitude out just a little bit. But I like him as a player.
Yeah, no, for a fact, I'd take him at Dale if he was on offer. Someone on offer that was realistic for us. I'd have him in a heartbeat. I think he's the kind of strike away missing who can find the net on a weekly basis anyway. But yeah, I think there's a couple of teams in League One that will definitely take a punt on him come January. The ones who are willing to take a gamble on the attitude in potential League One survival, like clubs like Charlton might have a look into get him up the table. Doncaster or another team that I think might take a punt on him. It's a case of watch this space when January hits. I'm sure he won't be short of punters anyway, wanting to get him into the club. Next question on Twitter is from Dan. So now we're a good chunk into the season and you've had the chance to measure most sides. Which team are you expecting to be busiest in January? And he thinks Charlton will be the busiest. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I reckon Charlton will be, because Charlton have got a bit of money under their new owners. And at the same time, if they do stick with Johnny Jackson, who I reckon would be a very good manager for them, they would need that, just a bit of backup in the transfer market. Maybe a few freebies, there'll be a few loan signings. I don't think they need to go full out with the money. Other teams, I reckon, could actually go full out. Well, not full out, but who could be busy in the transfer markets. Maybe the likes of Fleetwood. I can imagine Fleetwood spending a bit in the transfer market because they will want to stay up. They have been struggling a lot in League One, and I reckon that teams like Fleetwood will want to actually get new recruits in, and Simon Grayson will very much be looking at a few loanies just to bolster up his squad. But elsewhere in League One, there aren't really many teams I reckon would benefit from more signings. Ipswich certainly wouldn't. Wigan probably wouldn't. Plymouth Argyle, my main problem with them is their lack of depth. I don't think they have much depth at all, especially on the bench. They're a fantastic starting 11, but on the bench, they've got a lot of youngsters who are very, very talented, but who aren't necessarily ready for first team football yet. So Plymouth are another team who I reckon might need to maybe delve into the free agent market, the loanee market, just to get a few new faces in, just in case they pick up a few injuries. Because if they get a few injuries now, then that could be detrimental to the fantastic season that they've been having.
Yeah, I'd agree with that anyway. I think there's a couple of teams. I think like the bigger teams, the league, like your Sheffield Wednesdays. I expect Portsmouth to be quite busy as well with the way things go in there. I think Sunderland might get a few in because I think when we were previewing the season, I think we kind of agreed that Sunderland. I think Sunderland fans were kind of a bit underwhelmed by some of the business they did. So we'll have to wait and see. I think the bigger teams will be more active in the transfer window anyway. The next question we've had come in is from John Fleming. Do you think Crewe are down already? And do you think they're at risk of not coming back up? And if they fall out of the league, I presume you mean, I don't know if you mean just League One or the Football League altogether, because I can't see them infrastructurally being able to get back up. What do you think of Crewe? Do you think they're done already? Do you think they could come back up given the way things are there?
I think it's a bit harsh to say that they might fall out the Football League, but are they already down? I reckon they are. They sold some very big players, Pickering to name one, and ultimately I just don't think that they're strong enough at the moment. They didn't really have enough money anyway. I don't know how much they sold their players for, but I know that they certainly haven't reinvested into like players, if that makes sense. So yeah, they have been struggling a lot in League One, and the likes of Scott Cashfit ultimately haven't really been hitting it for Crewe. So yeah, I mean it's a difficult one. I can't see them coming back up if they go down to League Two. I can't see them struggling in League Two, as there'll be a lot of teams coming up from the Vanarama into League Two who will probably be struggling more than they will, depending on how much they recruit. But yeah, Crewe, they're one of the teams who you might be able to make an argument for to say, look, they're already down. They're a team who will just give teams 3 points this season. But again, you can't write them off as well, because who knows who they'll recruit in the January transfer window. And who knows, maybe David Artell could turn it around, even if that sounds highly unlikely.
Yeah, I'm going to go on a limb here. I don't want to write a team off after only 16 games, but I don't see Crewe staying up at all. I think they're done. When you look at the run they've been on, they've not played that many of the they've played a lot of the sides around. They've not really picked up much points from them as well. 6 points already the gap, and I think that's all going to grow. And I think they will. I think they are the worst side in the league at the minute. And David Artell is done a cracking job to get them at this level. But yeah, I think this season's a season too far for them, and they'll be back in League Two next season. Next question is from Steve Timms. How do you guys feel about the international break? I hate it. It's a compliment to the league that so many of its players get called up. What are your thoughts on the international break?
Yeah, personally, I can't stand the international break, and I think a lot of football fans do feel a similar way. For me, especially as a fan of a League One team, I'm actually happy that I support a team in this division, because we do tend to play during international breaks, unless, a team like Sunderland get call-ups or whatever. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan. I think it kind of like ruins the the pattern and the flow of the league. I reckon it's disruptive, and I reckon it's actually quite interesting. I reckon a lot of fans nowadays value the international break less than they did, say, 10 years ago. And I think that's kind of a testament to how a lot of these competitions have been ran by UEFA and FIFA. But that's a debate to have another day. I don't want to get into that debate now. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the international break. What about you, David?
Yeah, I'm not wild either. It's frustrating when your team's games call off. Thankfully, I don't think Rotherham have had to contend with that yet this season. We did quite a few times in League One, but it is annoying when your team's off because of an international game when it's like youngsters being called up to like under 18s, under 19s and whatnot, and they're playing on a Thursday, but it's somehow affecting games on a Saturday. And it is frustrating, especially when it's a 46-game season. It is. You've got your Papa John's games, your League Cup and FA Cup games to squeeze in there. It is difficult to get them games rearranged as well. So you're talking like back end of the season when these games get rearranged for. And yeah, so the Premier League obviously have a lot of games as well, but I think the lower leagues, where resources are more stretched and you have to cram more games into a really like cram period, it is very difficult. So yeah, I'm not wild on it either. I think, especially when it's players that I even get into the first team either. I think some clubs just use it as an excuse to get a game called off just to rest up for a week. So yeah, I'm not wild on it either. To be honest. Next question from Ben Morris. I think we've already kind of answered this for you, Ben, about the Gillingham game at the weekend, saying what your predictions for the weekend game and how many you think will beat Gillingham by. I think we're both in agreement. It'll be a Sheffield Wednesday win, but I don't think you're going to hammer them by any stretch of the imagination on that one. But yeah, I think you'll come away with 3 points. And the final question is coming from Rory over the Barzone Bundesliga show. Saying will players in the league benefit from no games during the international break as well as Premier Championship to help avoid burnout? I think we've already kind of touched on this, Ben, but do you think the league as a whole would benefit if we just cancelled the entire weekend of fixtures for the international games, or what's your thoughts on that question?
As a fan, I reckon if that happened, you'd have less fans angry that this game has been called off, but that game will be called off just because the entire fixture list during that match day has been called off due to the international break. But I reckon it would almost make sense because for the smaller teams, the international break is actually kind of important, especially to, like give them a break, to maybe give them a bit more time on the training pitch as well. But for the bigger teams, maybe it's counterproductive. Maybe it does the exact opposite. But at the same time, I don't really see the point in doing so because a lot of the players who are getting called up are youth players. They're playing for their under-19, under-20 sides, not necessarily senior players. So, like a lot of these teams, especially the likes of Sunderland and Rotherham, they're not really missing any senior players per se. They're missing youngsters who would generally come off the bench or who would get game time here and there. So at the same time, I just don't really think it's that logical just to kind of like call off League One games as well, very similar to Championship games. But yeah, I mean, I can see the benefit, especially for the smaller sides. But personally, from a League One fan point of view, I'd rather the games just to go ahead as they normally would. Even if teams do have to like rely without their youngsters and play their fourth or third choices. I don't really think it matters. A lot of these teams are strong enough anyway for League One. They can survive without them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think when you're only missing like one or two players that make you starting 11, the rest are just fringe players, just give it a go. It's one game, and I know some people might think it's a bit harsh that why should such a team go in under strength when other teams, just because their players aren't getting called up, to go in full strength. It's just part and parcel of football. Like when it gets to the Premier League level and you're missing your entire squad, that's different. And similar with Championship clubs, but League One and League Two, you're not missing a huge chunk of players. I think there should definitely be. There might already be a rule that I'm not privy to, but I think it should be definitely a case of they have to have been in like 5 of your starting 11. You have squads at this level for a reason, and yeah, you should be utilising them squads during the season. I think that's my personal opinion anyway. just looking at the live chat, there's not been much going on tonight in terms of that. I think the couple of questions that we have covered, apart from the final one from Ben, I think we kind of already touched on Portsmouth, but we'll go into a bit more detail because it is a bit of a weird situation at Portsmouth. Thoughts on Portsmouth this season? Shouldn't they be in the promotion fight? What's gone wrong? What do you think on that one, Ben?
Well, in my opinion, what's gone wrong for Portsmouth is simply, and this may sound really harsh, but I don't mean it like this when I say this, is simply the Cowleys. Now, I love the Cowleys. I'd love them at Ipswich. I think they're fantastic managers. But I have certain managers who belong at clubs and who don't belong at clubs, who would do well at certain clubs but won't do well at other clubs. And I reckon that's very much the case with the Cowleys. I reckon Portsmouth is a very poor fit for them. And I don't reckon it's a testament to how good or bad they are as managers. I reckon they're very, very good managers. I just don't reckon that this is really the squad for them. Maybe you give them a couple of transfer windows, I'm not sure. But the squad that they have at the moment is very much not an aging squad, but a squad that lack from any real youngsters, if that makes any sense at all. And I reckon that's very much affected this Portsmouth side. But when you look at them again, you look at a whole load of these players as well. Sean Raggett, Thompson, Marcus Harness as well. These are very good players. Some Portsmouth fans may be getting a bit impatient with them, but a lot of League One sides would take them in a heartbeat. But if I was a Portsmouth fan, just one final thing on Portsmouth, or if I was actually the Portsmouth board, I would actually consider just bringing in a few new attackers, because from talking to Portsmouth fans in the past, they're not very happy with their attacking quartet. I think Marquise, he's a very good player. I rated him a lot at Swindon, but he hasn't really hit the ground running at Portsmouth. I don't know whether that's harsh to say. But Danny Cowley has been playing him a lot up front, and he hasn't really been getting the goals for them. He's a fantastic player, but again, I just don't really think that this is the right club for them. And I reckon he'd benefit from maybe a move elsewhere in League One or in League Two. So I reckon Portsmouth do need to bring in a new striker as well.
Yeah, and there's just one final question from Chris Sons, and we'll wrap things up. Eventually loads. Are you boys going to do a show from outside the ground when Rochdale play Ipswich? Would love you guys to do some videos outside games talking to fans, but also want you together in person. I don't think that'll be happening anytime soon. Rochdale playing Ipswich. I don't see us coming back to League One for a while. I don't see Ipswich coming down to League Two. But if it ever was to happen, there's a Rochdale Ipswich game, I'm sure that's something we could facilitate. But I don't see that game like fixture happening anytime soon, given the fortunes of both clubs at the minute. I'd love for Rochdale to get back up this season, but with each passing weekend, disappointing performance, losing all hope of that for this year anyway. If anything ever changed on that, obviously we'll get promoted on the social media channels anyway. But that's everything for this week. I know it's a slightly different show, a little bit later in the week. But yeah, it's always a pleasure to do these shows for you, and your support as always is always great with your questions. Just before we go, the usual particulars. So obviously, if you're new to the site, we've got the website, which is our like bread and butter really, with all the articles on there. So make sure you check out otvfootball.net for all the written content we produce daily with some fantastic writers covering some fantastic areas of football. Also, we've got the very active Twitter page. Make sure you follow us at Over the Bar FB. We've also got a competition pinned on our profile at the moment to win a free Bundesliga box. So make sure you head over to the Twitter page, look at the rules for that, get entering, and you could win yourself one of their fantastic mystery boxes before the year is out. So make sure you check that out. Also, if you are watching us on Twitter and you're not subscribed to us over on YouTube, that's the URL there. So make sure you head over to YouTube, click the bell icon, notifications, get subscribed, and make sure you are watching League One show. League Two show is finally back next week. You'll be glad to know it is coming back on Thursday, the 18th of November. Ben will be joining me for that. We've got guests lined up for the first few weeks as well from different clubs. So make sure you check that out next week as well. And that's everything. So Thank you very much again for joining us. It's been a pleasure as always, and we'll see you all very, very soon. So if you do have any questions or anything in the meantime, or any feedback for the show, pop them in the comments or send us a message on Twitter. We're very open to the feedback, and we'll see you all very, very soon.